Hey, ladies, welcome back to the podcast. Very excited about this interview today. This is something my husband and I are always talking about, and I'm sure many of you are too. I have got Erin here from the Opt Out family, and we're going to be talking about media usage and phones and all of that. So, Erin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Jami. I'm so happy to be here.
All right, so I'm going to jump straight into this because I've got a lot of questions for you. I think this is such an important topic for all families to be discussing right now. Figure out where this, what this should look like for their family. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and how you became the opt-out family?
Of course. Yeah. I have 3 kids. We live in the Midwest. My husband and I are homeschooling as well. And so we have, let's see, their ages, it's birthday season. They'll be 12, 8, and 4. And we sort of stumbled into becoming an opt-out family by accident, I would say. I was an influencer in the very early days of influencing. I've been sort of writing online and doing, brand partnerships, ambassadors, that kind of thing. I had an HGTV.com show for 2 years. And that all sort of catapulted me into like, oh, you can have a career online and you can sort of become an entrepreneur and make your own path. And I found that to be very fascinating until I had a child. And then I recognized if I continue down this kind of self-paved path, I'm going to be parenting with my phone in my hand a lot more than I want to. And so I really kind of reined in my job. I sort of kind of threw out the rule book and figured out how can I still write passionately? How can I still speak about things that I love speaking about and yet not kind of wear all of the influencer hats that maybe traditionally we are sort of supposed to? And so through that process, I really just stripped back everything. I quit social media. I kind of redesigned what my life and work looks online. And our family's motto, this sort of came out of nowhere, but it became be more engaging than the algorithm. And the whole idea was we knew where the algorithm led, right? I was very involved in Silicon Valley and in even, social media platform startups. My husband worked at Apple's ad agency. We knew this was not a path we wanted our kids to go. But we also knew that it's not enough to say no to devices. We have to say yes to something better. Mm-hmm. So we thought, okay, well, what if we take all of the knowledge that we've learned in Silicon Valley and what if we kind of turn it on its head and we use it in our own home? What if we, find out from Minecraft, how do you present a challenge to a kid that doesn't demotivate? Find out from TikTok, how do you make your home feel like a party? Find out from venture capitalists, how do you prioritize decision making? And how do we teach parents how to do that in their own homes so that it's not us versus tech, it's just us moving toward the path of our goals and our dreams and where we actually want to be, not where, tech bros want us to be. So that's sort of how the book came to be. That's how we became an opt-out family. And, obviously we're learning and pivoting ever since.
Well, I love that because a lot of times we see it as a punishment to limit social media, to take away Instagram, either from our kids or ourselves, because, there can be enjoyable things out there and we see it as a punishment. And yet I love that positive spin on it is how do we make our household joyful? How do we take that positive and still have that in our life, but we're getting it from a different source. So this is not a punishment. This is actually something that we want to build our family and our family culture and who we are. And I just think that is such a great perspective.
Yeah, you talk about finding joy in your home. That's what we're trying to do here. Is just how do we make this life delightful, so delightful that we won't be sneaking away to check our feeds or trying to escape from this life. How do we just design a life that we actually do love?
So what does this opting out look like for your family? So like no tech, minimal tech, like what is this on a day-to-day, look? What does that look like?
Yeah, I say tech free because we're free from the influence of technology. So I don't participate in a lot of algorithm, really anything. So anything that is going to sort of lead me astray from my goals, I'm not into. So, that for me, that does mean social media. For our kids, though, it looks a lot like we have a lot of conversations about some of those murky ways that tech sort of influences us. I think often of What are we losing when we just quick show a photo on Google Photos or on our camera roll or whatever, instead of describing the situation? Or what are we losing when we ask Siri a question that we could ask someone in our own community? So being tech free for us means really thinking deeply about all of those situations in which our phone presents kind of the shortcut or the convenient way, and just sort of stepping back, opting out, reassessing and saying, okay, well, what did we do in the 80s? What was happening before this? So it's a little bit, my husband jokes, it feels like the 80s with Amazon, honestly, is how our house feels. It's just, we're certainly not opposed to any technology. We do limit it quite a bit for ourselves and for our kids, just so that we can create those moments where we're engaging ourselves and as a family connecting.
So what would you say to someone who sees opting out kind of as a privilege of, oh, well, that's great for your family. You can do that. What would you say to someone like that?
Yeah, that's a hard question, and I'm pretty unabashed about the fact that once you read the research, which I am so grateful that we have at this point, right? We know exactly what social media is doing to our kids. And when you read the mental health statistics, when you read the suicide statistics, eating disorders, how quickly we are offered content that is disturbing and that is far beyond the reach of where a child should ever go. Then I kind of view it not as a privilege, but as a right, as a responsibility, as something where we can move toward offering something better for our kids. And we have to go first. That's what parents have to do. We have to, if we want our children to live in a world where they will not be so uh, focused and influenced by total strangers online, then we have to figure out how to do that ourselves. We have to go first in that arena. So to me, I see it as my right, as someone that I'm interested enough to try to make this change. I want the future to be better for my kids. So I'm willing to kind of speak up and stand out. I'm willing to ask the local diner, hey, can we have a menu that doesn't have a QR code because we all don't have smartphones, right? Or, hey, we don't want to opt into facial recognition at summer camp. What are our options here? What waivers do we need to sign? I think those are things, it's certainly more work, but I think those are things that are just a right. If you are bothered at all by this future, if you don't necessarily think that, if you believe that, yes, technology is the future, but you're asking yourself, is this the future that we even want? Then, rally the village and circle up and make some noise, and that is your right to do. So I think it's a tricky question, but I also really firmly believe that if we are wanting something better for our kids, we have to do the work.
Yeah. And what I always talk about, whether you're talking about technology or changing things in your home or new routines, is that it's all about baby steps too. It doesn't have to be this all or nothing that, day zero, we use every technology out there. And then, day one, we've cut everything out and it's this total change. It can be gradual baby steps of slowly scaling back in certain ways and just kind of reevaluating too, because I think sometimes technology creeps in so fast that we don't realize all of a sudden all the technology use that's going on, and we can do it in baby steps and kind of pare back little by little.
Yes. And I love that you said that, because you're right. It's not all or nothing. And I think sometimes it's really easy to view it that way. It's also very easy to view it as, if the sort of the fear-based approach of take everything away and start over from scratch. And I always tell parents that one of the easiest ways to just take a baby step and scale back is to take all of your family photos off of your wallpaper and your lock screen, if you do have a smartphone at home, and just change that square to black, because it kind of sends this weird signal. This is how I started. It sent a signal to my brain that this was a phone, not my phone. It kind of depersonalized the device on such a level that it became just the landline that sits on the kitchen counter, right? I had already removed. I always say, like, parental controls aren't just for the kids; they're for the parents too. So we can use parental controls on our phone. We can turn off all internet access. We can take out our camera. We can change those settings in our phone to just make it a phone, just make it a landline, right? And it can just sit on our counter and not sort of beckon us or call to us, because it's not our whole life isn't on that phone. So that's a great if you're looking for baby steps, it's a great place to start.
Well, so that makes me think with, okay, your phone is just a landline. It's just sitting there on the counter. You're not reaching for it every 10 seconds. So what are some really tangible benefits you found from opting out, of starting to say no to things? What are some benefits that your family, either you personally or also your family, has seen?
Oh gosh, there are so many. I think one of the big ones is I haven't fully processed this yet, but I will say that I used to think I wasn't somebody that liked small talk, or that I thought I was an introvert. And I think I was just overstimulated all of the time from everybody else's opinions online. I really do. I think I was so tired of communicating by 9 a.m. with texts and dings and emails and everything that was sort of like tugging at my hem. I don't know that that's true anymore. I think a lot of us assume that we are not as much people as we are, but we really kind of are built for other people. And so I think we're just overstimulated. So it's fun when I go to the grocery now. I don't take my phone. And so I just, I'm sitting in the checkout line and inevitably striking up a conversation with generally a grandmother or someone in a different generation. And those conversations are just wildly beneficial. I have learned so much from the people in my actual life, and I've learned so much about giving them attention and giving them focus, and not multitasking the relationships that we have. I think there is a natural. People will say when they come to our house, um, your house feels different. It feels very peaceful. It feels very slow. It feels like it's kind of in a different generation. And it's not just because there's an absence of technology. It's just that there's a focus on the people you're with. There aren't distractions built in. And it's still crazy. I mean, we're kind of the low tech hangout in our neighborhood. So there are people coming and going at all times. It is just kind of a madhouse. I always say that I'm better at answering the door than answering my phone. So I just tell people, come on over. You don't have to text first. Like, just whenever, just show up. And so at any given moment, there is chaos, there is mess involved, but there's a different rhythm that we're kind of running on. And it's one that other people have really come to love and embrace. And they want to be at our house too. And a lot of people in our inner circle have sort of been like, oh, you guys are onto something. Okay. Tell us how. How did you do it?
Well, it's this move from global community. So right now with our phones, with our technology, we're more connected than ever, which there can be huge blessings in that. We can talk to someone across the world. There's this connectedness, but it also then, I think, in a lot of ways is a big detriment to our local community, to the people who are that are right here, whether in our own family, but also in our neighborhoods, in our churches, in our local community. And one thing in the last, 5 years or so that I've been really convicted of is just that doom scrolling of being on our phones and having so much input and so much stuff. And we're worried, and we're carrying the burdens of wars that are across the world. And I mean, just tragedies that happened in a city 10 states away, and all of this input, all of this stuff. And we are created to be empathetic, to carry each other's burdens, to feel that. And yet when we're trying to feel it on a global scale, we get so overwhelmed. We can get so depressed with all of that. And I don't think we were meant to carry a global, that global weight. And yet we're created to carry each other's burdens in community and with each other and with our families. And when we get so desensitized with everything that's going on in the entire world, we don't have that ability left over to carry that burden within our communities, with our friends who are walking through things right here, right next to us, because there's just so much noise, there's so much stuff. And I love that's been a big benefit for you, seeing you're just more connected to people that are right in front of you, not just the people that are in your phone millions of miles away.
Yes, you said that. I could not have said that any better. You said it perfectly. It's just the global community, and I've always sort of defined community as someone I can bring a casserole to, and so within that is the context of knowing when you need a casserole, or even the sort of the accountability and knowing that the details of your life to know, oh, well, I can't send this because your husband's allergic to cheese, or I can't offer this. Just living and walking alongside of each other. And I think that what happens when we are sort of taking in all of this global strife on a global level, we get kind of pent up energy because we can't really do anything about it. It's coming at us. We read it. We are heartbroken. And then our options are what? Donate money or talk about it, amongst each other, but there's no immediate action. It falls short of that unless we're going to go overseas and be on the front lines. And there's certainly room for that. And yet I think for the bulk of us, it is, okay, well, what do we do with all of this information? And I think I will say there is so much hurt in our immediate community. We just don't see it because it's not making our headlines. It's not making it on our phone. So we're not seeing it. We are so easily, bypassing our own community that is just right beyond our front door that needs us really, really deeply. But we don't know. We don't know. So you're exactly right.
Yeah. So what that leads me now is I would love for you to share with us, you wrote a new book about this topic. So what's kind of the purpose behind this book? Why did you want to get this out here? And what can we learn from it?
Oh, thank you. So yeah, the book is called The Opt-out Family: How to Give Your Kids What Technology Can't.
Mm.
And the idea was really, honestly, when I wrote it, the general narrative was very much, we talk a lot about digital well-being and balance and, kind of navigating a relationship with technology. And I wanted to know, okay, well, where is the book for the people that just don't want to tango with this beast altogether, right? Where is the book for the people that are, bravely and unapologetically moving forward with a very deep conviction that technology is not something that they want to embrace, really for their kids, right? So, our kind of loose strategy was always, when our kids need phones, they will buy them themselves, right? When they feel like they are at a place, when they start driving, there will be a track phone and a 20 in the glove compartment. We'll have an atlas in there, and then just out you go, right? Like just do it like you did it in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they decide what they want to do, right, what kind of device they want, hopefully they will have been nourished and grown up in an environment where they don't see it as a necessity. I don't love the idea that social media is inevitable for kids. I always push back on that. I don't think it's inevitable for adults either. I think it's just been so prevalent in our culture that we've just sort of gone with it. And now we don't know how to not go with it. And so, yeah, the idea of this book was very much, I want something different, and let's start figuring out how that's possible. Let's reverse engineer what makes our phones so delightful, so engaging, so sticky, because it's not all bad. Otherwise, we wouldn't be using it. So what are the elements that we can sort of bring into our own home that will sort of up level our delight and engagement with our own kids? And that's what the book was. And it's funny, even having these conversations, I think in the beginning, the question was very much why. Well, why would you opt out? Like, what's the benefit? What's, there was kind of a risk versus reward cost benefit analysis. And now everybody just wants to know how. Okay, yeah, we're on board. We have the research. We see it. We know it. We feel it. How do we do it? And that's what this book is for. It's very practical, and it's very, there's something for everything in it. And then there's the companion website. So if we don't have something that you need, please email me and tell me, and I'll make it for you. I want every parent to be equipped with trying something a different way. If they are opt-out curious, I don't want it to be for lack of tools that they can't do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's really encouraging, because I think there are a lot of us who feel like we do want to take more of a step back. Or I've heard from moms who feel like technology is so intertangled into their family that they just have no idea how to even make those first steps without their whole house blowing up, trying to disentangle them and their kids, and then figure out, like you were saying at the beginning, how do we replace that with positive things? So this is not just seen as a negative thing that we're taking away everything that you love in life and make it hopeful. Especially for families who have introduced technology, their kids are maybe older. I can see that there could be it could be a really tough transition. So do you have any encouragement for that mom who's like, I want to get started on this, but it feels too big, too hard, too overwhelming?
Yeah. I took a cue from Meta. I really do. Despite all of their flaws, and there are many, I really appreciate their reduce, remove, inform strategy for taking off some of that disturbing content. Or just taking out some of the misinformation, disinformation. It's not a perfect system, but they do a 3-step process. I walk families how to do this if they've already adapted to technology and they just kind of want to pull back the reins a little bit and replace some of that content. That's all, later in the book and available. But one part of that is anyone can report anonymously to Meta something that they've seen that is disturbing online, or something that is, a half truth or a mistruth or disinformation or any of that. And it's all anonymous. And I always encourage parents to have some sort of system in place, whether it's a box on your kitchen counter, whether it's just a suggestion box or just an anonymous drop box or whatever, to start having conversation about what your kids are seeing online. Even when they're at school and they're on iPad usage or whatever, they need to have space to process that with someone. And honestly, if that doesn't feel like that can be you, find the person it can be. Even if that means, we have 2-step authentication on our phones, right? Let's have that on our phone usage as well. Let's bring in some sort of mentor. So there's a follow-up, there's a duplicate effort happening, so our kids aren't falling through the cracks. Because I talk to so many kids and teens about their phone patterns and their habits, and every one of them said, yeah, I have seen something that really bothered me online, but I couldn't tell my parents because they would take away my phone. And yeah, they're right. They're right. And so if you are at that place, bringing in, a lot of parents have brought in, phone mentors just to walk kids through what they are seeing. And I will always say it is so much easier to parent without the phone than with it. But I would never say to a parent that's already gone down that road, now that they have the research, you can always course correct. You can always go a different way. And it's going to be harder than if you hadn't in the first place. We always know that, right? And we can beat ourselves up in a million different ways. But the point is, we actually do have the upper hand as parents. The research is all in the book, but we can engage our kids better than TikTok. It is possible. And I hope that by the time you finish reading it, you will see how it's possible, and you will have so many practical tips on how to integrate that. So just to offer hope to parents, whether or not your kids have a phone, there are so many things you can do to help rebuild that relationship and help become the number one influence in your kid's life again.
Yeah. And it's not too late. No matter if you have a 17-year-old or a 7-year-old, it's easy to feel like, well, it's too late. They're already on it. Their friends are already on it. It's too late. And I think there's so much you can do, especially when you're focused on that relationship with your child. There's so much that you can do no matter the age, that it's not too late, but we do have to be proactive with it. And it can feel scary. I saw an interview recently. Chip and Joanna Gaines were talking about how their kids are not going to have social media. And they got so much pushback from parents being like, oh, you're cruel. Oh, that's so mean. Oh, like they just see this now, social media, as just this right. And like you're depriving your children of something essential if you're not giving them social media. And I just think we're going to see the huge detriment of that in the next generation or two, where, we're already seeing it. But we get this, I don't know, this like, oh, but they have to have it. And other parents are going to judge us, and their peers have it. And it just becomes just this, you feel like you can't take it away. You feel like you can't take a step backwards. But I think there are so many resources, such as your book, to actually really help with that process when you do feel like there's nothing else I can do. Well, there actually probably are a lot of things that you can do, but it's hard, and it takes being proactive for sure.
Yeah, it does. And I would say also ask the kids in your life. Even in the course of writing this book, I wanted to know, okay, am I so far off base that this is impossible? And universally, the children and the teens that I spoke with said, we actually wish we had a life without social media. We wish that we didn't have that. This was not our future. We don't love it. And I think everybody thinks we're addicted to our phones all the time. But there's nothing better for us to do. Like, this is the world we've been given. This is the world we're living in. And so I would maybe we could start with the realization that our kids don't want social media as much as they think that they do either. So if we can just kind of move through that, there's that initial tension. There's almost like a schedule, right? There's that when they get 11, 12, 13, it sounds like this amazing thing they want to do. And yet after sort of that loop and that hurdle, they settle in and they find their people and they realize, oh, I can get by with an email address and a landline, or I can get by with a bike and can go hang out with my friends. And if we give them the independence to do that and the trust involved in doing that without tracking them on apps, without any of that,
Yeah.
something beautiful really does happen. And so the kids, yes, I would say let's listen to our kids and let's um, recognize that this is what they've been offered. That's not necessarily what they want.
Yes, that is great encouragement. Well, I think that's a perfect place to end then. I think I'm excited to dig into your book. So why don't you tell everybody where they can find it? Your book is out currently, right?
It comes out June 11th. So
Oh,
depending
okay.
on
Oh,
when
yeah,
this
we're
goes
close.
live. Yeah. So we're almost there. It's available anywhere books are sold. And yeah, you can get it anywhere. And you can also head to the site up.family.com. It'll be in libraries if you want to borrow it. That's awesome too. You know, I always love going to the library. So big proponent. So just borrow it if you want to. But yeah, definitely give it a read. I hope that it's beneficial.
Awesome. Well, Erin, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing that. This was a really big encouragement, and I encourage everybody to go check that book out. I think this interview will probably be coming out right after the book comes out, so people can head over and grab it. So, Erin, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Jami.